Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Randomly Relaxing. Today we're going to relax in the form of what they call a reaction video, where we're going to look at some content on YouTube, and I'm going to give you my reaction analysis of it. I watch a lot of content on YouTube, like probably most of us, and a lot of times if it's sort of political in some way, or has to do with the government or the law or rules, I see a lot of people saying or doing things that are wrong, and this will be a fun chance for me to get some of that off my chest. I think you might find this entertaining as well. The video we're going to watch today, and I have some water I'll be drinking here. The video that we're going to watch today is by a gentleman called Michael Picard. He lives on the East Coast. I think he's like in Connecticut or somewhere. He does a lot of his videos in the Massachusetts area. But you can see his website is, or his YouTube handle is Professional Douche. Basically, Michael is a troll, and he tries to get reactions out of people at different kinds of events. Very frequently, the events are political rallies, and I would say 9 times out of 10 they're pro-Trump rallies, or more commonly pro-police rallies. So Michael, from what I can tell, is I think he would call himself an anarcho-capitalist, which is basically like saying the government pretty much shouldn't exist. There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack with that we won't go into, but the point is that Michael doesn't seem to, consider himself a lefty or a Democrat any more than he does a right-wing Republican or Trump supporter, and I think just goes to Trump rallies because he's kind of gotten down the ways to get reactions out of people, and as you see in the video, he has like some people he's come to know quite well over the years from having done these things. So I wanted to just kind of watch this with you guys, tell you some things that I see. I'm actually not going to make any kind of commentary on any like political issues. I just like to point out some of the things that are happening, at the actual, or with the human interactions that are occurring between Michael and some of the people at these events. And this rally, interestingly, has both a pro-Trump aspect to it, but there's also a very significant, I don't know if you'd call it a counter-protest, or if just, there's 2 protests basically happening at the same time on opposite ends of the political spectrum. But Michael ends up talking or interacting with people on both of those camps. So we'll see why that is in just a moment. So here's Michael coming into the rally and trying to get access to this area where it's like fenced in, and they're trying to kind of corral people that are protesting on one side. So here we go.
For this rally, how do I get over there? Thank you. That was easy. Where are you, Rayla? We're about to get a bunch of people pissed off. Here we go.
Rayla is this local politician in Massachusetts, and I lived in Massachusetts for about 15 years before I moved to the great upper Midwest where I live now. But I never heard of her, but when I lived there. And Rayla is a common theme of the videos this guy does, and he's clearly gotten under her skin. If you catch any of the videos where she's present at one of these things and he interacts with her, so if you like this kind of trolling content, he's got quite a few videos up you can go watch.
No. You gotta leave. You're leaving.
No.
You're leaving.
No.
This guy's causing trouble here. This guy's causing trouble. You gotta leave.
Okay, so he tries to get in. There's like, I don't know who this guy is that gets to determine who gets in and out, but I mean, I think the idea is somebody applied for a permit, some group applied for a permit, and to use, some public space for protest. They got that permit, and then they get to control kind of what goes on there, particularly when there's barricades up to protect and segregate people that might not get along too well and therefore impact the safety of the public. So what happens is, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but because I don't want to, I'm using this video only for commentary and educational, critical purposes. And so I want you to guys to, if you want to see the whole video, go and watch it, on Michael's YouTube channel. So I'm just going to describe what happens, but basically what happens is these guys start to kind of push him around and tell the police that this guy in particular, maybe we'll watch a little bit of what this guy in black does to him. You see how he's very aggressively pushing.
Why are you touching me?
And then then there was that other guy who had a black face mask on. He's like, chill out, man. You can't be like freaking out on this guy. But he continues to freak out on this guy. And I'm looking through a book here so I can cite some things for you guys. It's not the Bible. All right, I'm going to read you the definition of battery. I can show you real quick here. I have my criminal law in a nutshell book. Batteries is generally defined as an intentional bodily injury or offensive touching of another. Thus, a man who intentionally punches another in the nose or fondles a woman without her consent is guilty of this offense. In some jurisdictions, criminal negligence will suffice in lieu of intent for this offense. Okay, so the reason I looked this up is because basically what happens is this guy, Michael Picard, gets, past the door guy into the protest, and then a bunch of people, recognize him, they know who he is, and they say, oh, you can't be here, and they start basically manhandling him. And the question I ask myself is, are these people who are basically forcibly pushing this guy, ejecting him from a vent, committing battery, which is generally the offense of when you hit or strike somebody, as opposed to assault, which is creating a fear of injury in somebody. So when I read that definition, the question is this offensive touching? And I have this book because I'm not a criminal lawyer, and I don't know the answers to all these questions, but I think one has to ask themselves, if one is analyzing a situation like this, which parties are committing crimes and which are not. And I see in Michael someone who has managed to get into an area in which presumably the people who hold the permit for use of this area during the time allotted do not wish him to be, which is probably similar to how the situation would fold out if Michael went into a grocery store or a hotel or a private business or residence where he was not welcomed by the people that had authority over that space. So what should happen in most of those instances, the home is a kind of a special case because people don't generally show up in people's homes if they're a stranger, and you can very much think that you are reasonably in danger if someone does, and so your rights to self-defense are very strong in that case. But in this case, or in the case of a quasi-public space like a grocery store or a hotel or I was going to say a library, but that's actually a public space, but you get the point. Places where one can go into. The way it should work is if somebody comes in and they're asked to leave and they don't, then they're committing trespass. And you can't assault that. You can't batter that person because they're committing trespass, unless you have some sort of justification, which would be self-defense, based on a reasonable expectation that that person was going to harm you. In this case, that is not really what's going on. Michael is just walking in. Clearly, they think he should not have been admitted, and they forcibly remove him by fairly aggressively pushing him. I would say that is offensive, touching, and what you would do if you wanted to be a criminal lawyer and figure out whether or not there was a case here. You would look at cases where somebody has ejected somebody from a place where they didn't want them to be, and they had the authority to make that decision, and whether pushing them was permitted. I suspect that if you did that, you'd find a range of cases that all had slightly different facts, and some cases the pushing was not justified, and so therefore it was offensive, and a crime was committed at that point. In practice, the police are generally not going to arrest people for this kind of thing unless someone was actually harmed, and ultimately the police don't make the decision about whether crimes are committed. Their job is to apprehend those that they have reasonable suspicion and or probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed by, and bring them into custody for processing, and at that point either hold them or release them. But the decision of whether or not the person has done enough to warrant criminal prosecution is actually not the police's. It's typically the district attorney. For local crimes, could be a city attorney. For very local crimes like trespassing happens to be, or if it's murder, it's typically going to be a state attorney or a federal United States attorney if it's a federal crime. So my point is that lots of people get arrested and they get brought in, and they don't get charged with crimes because the relevant governmental attorney who's responsible for going after people who have committed crimes decides that they're not interested in pursuing a criminal case against the person who was arrested. So let's move on. So they forcibly remove him, and it gets to the cops. And what the police do in situations like this, from what I can tell, again, I'm not a criminal lawyer, I'm not an expert on the police either, but generally what you see in videos where the police are involved with protests is, they're trying to keep the peace. So if somebody is, if their presence or what they're doing is causing, even through no fault of their own, a disturbance in the peace, then they will be separated from the people with whom that person is interacting to create a disturbance in the peace. So that's why the police did what they did here, which was, essentially to, permit his expulsion from the little gated-in area, and then, allowed him to just stand outside of it. He ends up talking to this guy here in the sunglasses, who seems personable enough, and just tries to kind of work him over. He says, you can see the subtitle. There's, excuse me, I'm converted Trumpkin now. So he just says little stupid stuff, and he talks to him. At one point, he gets a hug from him, which is pretty impressive. When people are coming in, he's like, "Oh, let me in with that person," and just being kind of silly. So basically, what happens is he ends up kind of giving up on trying to get in. Oh, there's the hug. What a moment, you guys. You see? I think we all can get along. This is his guy who is like sort of a co-collaborator with him. He often pretends to be a Trump supporter and then goes to the same places and starts to try to make a ruckus. But they know who he is, and they actually like start dragging this guy. That is very clearly battery, in my view. And if you had a district attorney who was so inclined, I would think you would have a pretty strong case against all these people who are involved. The problem is with cases like this, you don't have complete, like, we sort of picked this video up, when Michael, whose camera is rolling here, sees his friend being escorted by these guys. We don't know what happened before this. So, theoretically, these guys who are dragging him could say, oh, well, he tried to attack somebody, and we were forcibly removing him to de-escalate the situation and prevent that person from further harm. By the way, they would not say that. Their lawyer would say that. These guys would say, but their lawyer would say, you didn't see what happened before, and my client tells me that, all these bad things this guy was doing basically created a situation where he had to be removed or the public would be in danger and blah, blah, blah. And so, unless a district attorney has like a very complete picture of everything, they're not going to want to deal with a case, over a battery charge, which is a very light charge, if it's not aggravated battery or, something more than just battery. So, you might see something like a bar brawl result in charges, but this kind of scuffle probably happens all the time, all over the city, every single day. And they're just not, interested. They've got other things to do with their time. So, you sort of hope nobody gets physically hurt at all, and I don't think this guy was. And that people will not have feel enough leeway where they will do more than, what they've done. But there he is, sort of proudly sporting his ripped shirt. So Michael kind of works this guy over and over. Kind of some funny editing of the video if you go watch it. And eventually he gives up. So then he goes over to the other side, and you'll see what happens here.
What?
Can you please put a mask on if you're walking through this area? We don't want to risk people getting sick. Can you please put a mask on? Sir, can you please put a mask on or leave the area?
So this was recorded quite some time ago. I think in very current times, the idea of asking somebody in an outdoor space to wear a mask would go over, like a lead balloon, for better or worse. But back then, I think, like the George Floyd protests, a lot of people weren't wearing masks, but a lot of the kind of organized protests that happened around the country, people were trying to mask up for the most part. And so sort of sign of the times that this interaction occurred back then. I don't think you'd see this kind of thing going on now, but I thought it was interesting. So basically what happens is this young woman here is asking this gentleman, Michael Picard, to put on a mask. He generally does not wear a mask in any of these things he does, but as far as I've seen, they're all outdoors, so I don't really think that's very shocking or surprising to anybody. And although, we know little about Michael, except that he probably doesn't have the greatest health profile for avoiding some of the harsher symptoms or effects of COVID-19. So we'll leave it there. But basically, what happens with this young woman is she just keeps, kind of asking him, and she actually does, quite politely, but very, very insistently. He's like, no, I have a mask, but I'm not wearing it. No. And then I want to really focus on this part. I think I can find it. He counts the time where she says, "Can you wear a mask? Can we wear a mask? Can we wear a mask?" Okay, yeah. So this is it.
Everyone here, including yourself, can you please wear a mask? I asked if you are recording me that I don't consent to being recorded.
Okay.
So if you do have any footage with me in it,
What happens if I do this?
that's illegal. Like,
It is?
It's a two-party thing. Two-party consent state.
It is. Oh, okay.
Do you mind deleting the video recording you have of me? You're recording me without my consent. You're
Okay.
virtually recording me without my consent.
All right. Good job.
Okay, so I see this a lot, in videos, that are just sort of like kind of people being in public. And I'm hoping I can help you guys understand what the law is on this, because a lot of people are just really, really confused about, what restrictions there are on taking video recordings of people. Okay, so this young woman says, you don't have my permission to record me. You can't record me. It's a two-party state, she says. And what she's referring to is that generally speaking, states in the United States are either one-party or two-party consent states with regard to recording conversations that otherwise would have been secret conversations or confidential private conversations. Generally, what this refers to is telephone or wiretapping communications. So the relevant law she's talking about in Massachusetts, actually, pulled up this page from my friends at the Berkman Center, Harvard Law School. This talks a little bit about what the law is for their digital media law project, which is for people who are doing like podcasting and other things and need to understand laws relevant to what they do. And so basically what it says here is that the law in Massachusetts pertaining to this situation is about secret recordings. So two-party consent laws require that if two people are being recorded, they both have to be aware of it in order for that recording to be lawful. Now, if you're out in the public, on a public street, it's pretty obvious that you're aware you're being recorded in a situation like this. Now, there may be some, there are some situations where you could be in public and someone could be recording you and you wouldn't know it. However, this law pertains to voice recordings and not video recordings. And video recordings, assuming you divorce them from their audio, are generally fine to take of any person if it is in a public space, because they have no reasonable expectation of privacy in that public space. If you did a video recording of your Airbnb guest at your rental place and they didn't know about it, obviously that's a huge problem. And that's actually something different than wiretapping. That's invasion of privacy and probably a few other things. Some states probably have laws specifically, making that a crime. But for ones that don't, there is an invasion of privacy crime in many states that, prevent this kind of thing, or stores from, taking recordings of people in their dressing rooms and things like that. But so here we are. I've probably not succeeded in making this analysis seem like it's simple, but that was my hope. This person has the law quite wrong when she says that consent is needed. In fact, all that's needed is her knowledge that she's being recorded, and that's only for her audio. For the video, if you're in public, you're you can be recorded without your permission or consent, because you're in public and you have no reasonable expectation of privacy. People can look at you with their eyes, and by the same token, they can record you, and it's not a violation of any state's laws for that to happen. So if I do another one of these reaction videos, I kind of want to do one of these reaction videos for a First Amendment audit, which is where somebody goes into a public space and basically baits the government employee to tell them to leave, or they can't record, or whatever else, and then gets a reaction out of them. But a lot of times there's a misunderstanding about these kinds of issues there too. But this idea that you can be in public and tell people not to record you is mostly completely wrong, unless they're doing it without your knowledge that you're being recorded, that your voice is being recorded. But that's not the case here, because obviously she knows very well she's being recorded. And I also wanted to add, she talks about a two-party consent state. So there are states that are one-party consent. So what that means is you can record a phone call between you and somebody else because you are aware that the recording is happening, but the other person may not be. That's a different situation than a scenario where I record a phone call between, my friend and his girlfriend. That would be, zero parties giving consent, and I would not be allowed to do that in any state. But some states do allow you to record your own phone calls with other people if, you're aware of the recording happening, even if the other person is not. But for two-party states, they both have to be aware of, and they have to consent to the recording in order for that to be legal. And Massachusetts is one of those states that you do have to have two parties consent and awareness of recording in order for a audio recording of their voice to be made. So I just wanted to talk about that for a while. All right, let's go to the next section. Oh, okay, this is the last part of the video, and basically Michael, having been ejected from the little corralled-in space with the pro-Trump supporters. He finds this is actually the guy. This is the guy who I think this is the guy. I feel like he was wearing like all black before, but he had sunglasses. But anyways, these are, I think, yeah, that is him. These are the folks that were ejecting him. So they somehow got out of the penned-in area. And then this woman here, with the red scarf, basically is very offended that Michael is talking to them and wants him to go away. And let's watch just a little bit of that interaction, shall we?
Back up. Leave me alone.
Dude,
You back up.
back off.
Let's go, guys. I didn't do anything.
I'm just fast forwarding a little bit.
With you guys.
We don't need friends like you.
Okay, so this kind of goes on,
Come on.
and then it kind of comes to a head.
I'll have you arrested.
So she says, "Stop following me. That's stalking. I will have you arrested." Following somebody is not stalking. Now I'm gonna go look up stalking in my book. I don't think it's gonna have it because that's kind of a newer sort of turn on criminal statutes, and I feel like my book here is kind of old. Yeah, so I couldn't find anything in that book, at least not in the index. But stalking is a specific crime that generally requires someone to be, taking repeated action to, like harass somebody. The idea that you can follow somebody for 2 blocks and it's stalking is crazy. But I get that. I don't mean to sound like a hard ass. That I expect people to have Johnny Cochran's understanding of the law. I'm just kidding. I don't know if he really understood anything except how to be a showy trial lawyer. But I bet he probably knew quite a bit about the substance of criminal law. I don't expect everybody to have that kind of knowledge, but I do think it's just sort of noteworthy how often people just kind of pull stuff, kind of out of thin air when they're, just trying to get somebody to do what they want. They just start like kind of making up stuff. They're like, I'm going to call the cops. You're going to talk to my lawyer. It's like, they're not going to call the cops. And if they do, the cops are going to laugh at them. People who say, you can talk to my lawyer, I guarantee you, nobody who has a lawyer has ever said that to another person. And I always chuckle because it's such a tell that somebody has no idea what they're talking about and has never like hired a lawyer in their lives. If they say you can talk to my lawyer, or you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Okay, I guess some people who do have lawyers say that, but it's like 1 out of 100. And if you're on the street, it doesn't matter. But anyways, I'll have you arrested. It's like, well, no, you probably don't determine whether the police are going to arrest somebody. I get what she's saying is probably that she's going to call, she's going to ask the police for help. But I don't know. This kind of thing just sort of drives me crazy. But maybe you're fine with it, so I thought I'd comment on it. All right, let's watch it a little bit more here.
You fucking crazy little turd. Get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with you?
Sam, where are we going?
You're not following him.
What?
That's stalking.
It's not stalking.
Dude.
I'm with you guys, though.
Although I will say, Sam is the black gentleman. He had sunglasses on. We saw him before. He's openly gay, and Michael makes many sexual advances, even though he's not gay, toward Sam. And he's a recurring theme of all of these troll videos. And it seems like Sam is at all of these events, and Michael's at all these events. So, like, if Michael ever did anything that was, illegal, but he never does, to harm Sam, he very well may have a stalking case because he shows up at all these events where he's at. So maybe that's stalking, but following down the street on its own is not stalking.
No, you're not.
I am. We're together.
I don't want him to know what my fucking vehicle looks like.
Where are we going, Sam? Lead us.
You're gonna back the hell up.
Lead the way.
Dude, seriously, go back over to the police.
What did I
You're
do?
harassing me.
No, I'm not.
Excuse me. He's harassing us.
So this is something I see all the time in these kinds of videos too, is where people play kind of like opposite land. She says, "You're harassing me," and he said all about like 3 words, but she is like in his face and yelling very loudly and making kind of a scene. I get that she doesn't want him around, but there's generally no law that protects people from not having other specific people around them in public. If you go into private and the people that own the private space don't want that person either, then they can be trespassed. But this idea that when you're in public and another person is public, you have some control over that person to make them go away or to not speak to you or to do anything else that's not illegal is a fantasy that doesn't exist, except in the minds of people who believe they have, some sort of power over the world that they do not in fact have. So this lady becomes more and more agitated, and has no real basis for that. Now somebody in a similar situation like this could think that this guy, is capable of causing harm. If he's a stranger, if he's acting erratic, if he has said anything that's threatening. But Michael is, he's there to clown. He never does any of that. He's well aware of the laws. He's been arrested quite a few times. He also does things that don't involve really, the public citizenry. He'll go to like a courthouse and protest outside there, and just only get harassed by the security officers for the building. So he does stuff like that. He's very well aware of kind of the limits of what he can do and the importance of not doing anything that would involve any risk that he would harm another person, like negligently, and certainly not intentionally. So a lot of times people will go up to him, they'll steal his, he carries signs a lot. They'll take, like he's got an American flag that he walks around with a lot when he goes to these kinds of rallies. And people will steal his flag. They'll try to take his microphone he uses a lot, or his camera, or any number of things. And he never resists. He never fights back. He just lets it happen. And he says, "Say you're sorry" to them a lot. So, Michael is a very clean example of somebody who is never going to be in a situation where somebody like this who says he's harassing us or, he's doing something illegal is going to have any kind of, potential case. But, you see people saying stuff like this, and, I get it. Not everybody knows Michael. I don't know Michael, but, I know his videos, and, maybe they think he's got a shifty eye and he seems kind of suspicious, and, who knows, maybe he's got a gun under his jacket or something like that. Like, there are circumstances where people just misapprehend the situation and they feel maybe they're in danger when they're not. But this doesn't seem to be that. This seems to be a woman who just wants Michael to go away, and she feels that she should have the power to make that happen in a public space. But in fact, the law does not give her or anybody else that power. Somebody has to be committing a crime or reasonably be suspected of committing a crime in order for them to be removed by the police, and no other person really has the authority to move somebody out of a public space in which they otherwise have the right to be. So I'll watch a little bit more because I want to see what happens. I want you to see what happens a little bit into this with this woman when she's not really getting like results. just saying he's harassing, he's stalking, he's following.
I'm just trying to be friends with you. I'm not hitting anyone. We're friends.
Can you please remove him?
Now you see, this I see a lot too. You know, oh, if he hits somebody, oh, don't hit somebody. Are you gonna hit somebody? Oh, why are you trying to hit me? You see what happens here? This is really despicable. We're gonna watch a little more.
We're friends.
No, we're not. Can you please help me?
Proud Boys.
Can somebody please help me?
Proud Boys unite.
He's harassing me!
What did I do?
He's harassing me!
I'm just taking a nice walk with you guys.
I don't want you walking with me! You're scaring me! He's threatening me!
Okay, so here we go. He's threatening me. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see anything remotely resembling a threat. So this woman has now fabricated something that is completely false. She's lying to her teeth, through her teeth. If she were to say this to a police officer, that would be in itself a crime. Now, you can say, and her lawyer would say, if she was charged, oh, well, by threatening, she didn't mean that he was threatening bodily harm to her. She just meant that he was threatening her by not doing, not doing what she wanted. She felt threatened. He was following her, following around. He was not leaving when she asked him to leave. That was threatening to this woman. Okay, well, that's a nice defense. But what this woman means to do is to lie about what has happened here to make the police or any authority she can find do something about Michael when she could have just kept walking wherever she was going. Now, she said she didn't want him to see her car. And I think, again, when somebody has a reasonable fear of a person, that's actually a reasonable thing to think, that you don't want them to see your car because they'll have a license plate and they could theoretically find you that way. Or, maybe you're in a parking garage that's lonely and dark and you don't want this person following you into that place. Well, that's actually reasonable if somebody is acting in a way that creates a reasonable fear that they may harm you. But that in my view has clearly not happened here, and I think this woman is she's grandstanding, and she could have just gone into a hotel. There's Copley Square Hotel, I think, right around here is Copley Square parking. I happen to know this area because I lived in Boston for many years. There's lots of things she could have done. But frankly, if she would have just said nothing and kept walking with the crowd, around the block, if she didn't want to go to her car, like Michael would have just gotten bored. But she fed the troll. She fed the troll. And trolling is not illegal. So let's see where this resolves.
Sam, where'd you go? There he is.
He's threatening me! Hello?
Here's another thing you see in videos a lot is with like Karens. There's a lot of Karen videos out there, which maybe we'll analyze next. But calling 911 it's just such a terrible waste of resources. Here this woman is ostensibly at a kind of a pro-police. I think that was part of the protest. but maybe it was just a pro-Trump protest. But anyways, there certainly is an overlap between the pro-Trump crowd and the kind of, pro-police activist crowds. I'm going to assume she's pro-police, but, I mean, how do you not understand that the police and the dispatch folks who have to handle these calls are harmed by what you do when you call them for totally silly things? Now, if you guys want to tell me, look, this woman was clearly, under the belief that she was in trouble. She was, really going to be in danger if she didn't get rid of this guy. That would be something I don't think I could say, oh, well, look at this, and that's definitive proof that you're wrong and I'm right. I think it's a gray area, but, my take on this is that this woman is not, first of all, I don't think she's actually in fear. I think she just wants this guy gone. And second of all, whatever fear she has is totally unreasonable. And you have to be in, your fear of somebody, if you're talking about assault, it has to be reasonable. You can't say, oh, I'm afraid of that person selling flowers because I'm scared of roses. That's not reasonable. You can certainly say that person, waving their gun around and shooting it into the air has caused me fear, because that would be very reasonable. What this woman is doing she does not have a reasonable fear in my view, and I don't think she has an actual fear at all. I think she doesn't like this guy, and he's not doing what she says, and she expects someone to basically effect her wishes as though she gets to control what happens out in the public world.
I thought we were friends.
Catch a charge?
Take that back. She's a nice.
See, this is not somebody who is in fear. Even 1 iota. Okay? That is not what you do when you're in fear. You start shit-talking the guy that you think is a danger to you. If you're actually scared of somebody, you're going to walk without interacting with them in any way. You're not going to make eye contact. You're going to go into, a private space like a hotel lobby or a store, and you're just going to kind of do whatever you can until they get bored and go away. You're not going to tell them that their mother should have swallowed. This woman is not in any fear, and if she were, it would not be reasonable.
Person.
First of all, you know what? Freedom of speech, sweetheart. My opinion isn't your best. What do you want to do about it?
Yeah, freedom of speech.
Go ahead, beat me up. Hit me. I dare you.
Freedom of speech unless we disagree with it.
And you're what? This is my country, honey. My thing was here before you.
This is her country.
Oh, okay. Her family was here before yours. That's a pretty obvious racist statement right there, because it really doesn't matter when her family arrived in this country or anybody else's. And if she believes that it does, then she believes that the fact that some groups of immigrants arrived here earlier makes them better than other groups of immigrants. By the way, how does she know when those people's ancestors arrived? Well, she's making an assumption based on their racial profile. So she's outed, she is, in this instance, I think, very clearly outed herself as a flaming racist. And I don't think there's really any debating that, but I'm sure people would try. So, let's see. Oh, and then she calls him a pussy. She calls one of the people that's arguing with her Pussy. Oh, and then an actual fight breaks out in this entryway, I think, to a hotel. It's like a... it doesn't involve Michael at all, but there's Samuel. So he gets in another dig there. And I think that's kind of it. So, alright, there you go. There's my first reaction video ever. It was fun. I always love... stop that video. I always love watching some Michael Picard. Maybe we'll do another one of his. Or we'll do some of those First Amendment audit videos. Or maybe we'll just do like some Karen videos or something. I keep thinking like I could do some of these TikTok videos that I see and comment on them. And we could have lots of fun. So, alright, well, looking for your feedback on all this stuff, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and help me find an audience here. Thanks, everybody. Catch y'all later.